Are you trying to gain as much muscle in the shortest amount of time possible? If the answer is yes, you're probably overlooking the most important thing for muscle growth. First, to quickly plug myself, I'm the Ninja Lifter and I'm here to help people with the knowledge that I wish I had when I first started lifting. And if you haven't seen all my other videos, you should definitely go check them out because they kind of build on each other. Now that my shameless plug is out of the way, let's get into the purpose of this video, which I'm actually really excited about, and that is nutrition. This video will give you an introduction to the nutrition needed for the gym. It will not cover every single topic about nutrition and everything, so don't expect that. But it will give you the knowledge you need to have the correct nutrition to gain a shit ton of muscle in the gym. To start off, nutrition is just as or more important than your actual training in the gym. Let me repeat this. Nutrition is just as important as your training. It's crazy because if I had a penny for every time I saw a person in the gym training like an absolute madman, but eating like a little bitch outside, out of like $1,000,000. Nutrition is the one thing that will separate you from everyone else. Also, nutrition is probably the hardest part of the whole aesthetic body, muscle growth, whatever you want to call it. It is the hardest part of gaining muscle. So if you thought training was hard, you're in for a treat. But because it's hard, that makes it awesome because this will put you above everybody else. And if you can embrace this and discipline yourself to eat correctly, your limits are sky high. The first thing we'll cover about nutrition, and one that you've probably heard talked about a zillion times, is protein. And that's for good reason. Protein is absolutely essential. I'm talking 100% essential to putting on muscle. You absolutely need to increase the amount of protein you have after you start training. But how much protein do you need to gain the most muscle? And that answer is different for everybody. You've probably heard millions of different numbers being thrown around. 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, 1 gram per pound of body weight, 1.3 grams, 1.5 grams. It's too much. But I think is good for a lot of people is 1 gram per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you should be getting 150 grams of protein per day. Also, a lot of people think the more protein they eat, the more gains they're going to get, but that's just not true. If you're eating 1 gram per pound of body weight, you're getting pretty much the most out of your gains. So don't stress. Protein amounts do sometimes change, which we'll be getting into later into this video. Alright, now let's move on to calories. And this is where things get a little bit complicated because it all depends on what phase you are in. There are two phases, bulking and cutting. You might be asking, which one do I start if I'm a beginner? And there's a very easy way to tell which one you should start with. Basically, if you're happy with how your body looks and you have a pretty low body fat percentage, you're in a good place to gain, you should 100% bulk. But this isn't some dirty bulk where you eat everything in sight. We're better than that. This is a lean bulk where you only eat 200 to 300 calories above your maintenance. That can be adjusted depending on how much weight you gain. But the reason we enter into a bulk is to gain the most amount of muscle possible. There is no other way besides bulking to gain muscle. Trust me. You need to be bulking for as long as possible. 4 months is the minimum, but the best bulks will last around 6 months to a year. This is why it's important to be relatively lean and happy with your body before you start, because gaining a teensy bit of fat is inevitable no matter how lean your bulk is. Quick story time. I went on the craziest dirty bulk ever for 6 months, and don't dirty bulk. Trust me, take it from me. I gained so much fat, and cutting was brutal afterwards. You might be having fun in the meantime, but you're going to hate yourself later. Just lean bulk, don't dirty bulk. Think of me if you ever see a giant cookie sitting and like, damn, I want to eat that. Think of the Ninja Lifter on YouTube. The second phase is cutting. And you cut when you are in a bad place to gain from with a high body fat percentage. Cuts can come in many different shapes and sizes, but usually they range from 500 to 1200 calorie deficit. A calorie deficit is eating less than your maintenance calories. The purpose of cutting is to lose as much fat as possible while preserving your muscle mass. This is mainly to make room for more muscle mass so you don't get too fat and hate yourself. There are two ways to cut: slowly or aggressively. And I recommend to every single person watching this video to start slowly, because there's no point going super aggressive, because at the end you'll just binge it all back. Trust me, I did this exact same thing and binged it all back. It was the worst I've been mentally in a very, very long time, and I don't want that for you. For you, I'd probably recommend 500 to 650 calories in a deficit, but always adjust to how you're feeling, raising or lowering depending. But all of this we just talked about changes if you're a teenager like myself. That's because teenagers are still growing, so you should be in a lean bulk for most of the time. But I'm not like one of those other assholes who just says lean bulk no matter what. I understand what it's like to not like your body fat percentage and things like that. So in that case, I recommend a slow and steady cut. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what I say. You gotta trust yourself to know what to do. Those are your two phases. But let's go back to talking about protein, because protein intake can differ between the two phases. When you're bulking, you don't need as much protein. So I would stay to that 1 gram per pound of body weight thing that we were talking about earlier. This is because you can pull a lot of energy into your muscles from the extra calories you are eating. However, while in a cut, you don't have that extra energy to fuel your muscles and keep it preserved. So I would aim for 1.3 to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight to preserve your muscle as long as possible. Now that we've talked about protein and the two phases, bulking and cutting, which I think all those things are the most important parts, we can talk about carbs and fat, which are the other two macronutrients besides protein. Both of these are important, but nowhere near as important as protein is for muscle growth. But basically, fats are great for your bulk because they're in nutrient-dense foods. So you can get in more calories for less. So if you struggle with eating a lot, try high-fat foods. But fats can also be helpful on your cut because fats help regulate hormones. And if you're going to an aggressive cut, which I don't recommend, then you need your hormones to be balanced, which fat can help do. On the other hand, we have carbs, which are not essential despite what you may think, but they are extremely useful in both phases. Carbs are used to give our cells and muscles fast energy, which means it's fantastic to take a bunch of carbs right before a hard workout. So we have the macronutrients out of the way, let's circle back to protein. Protein can come in many shapes and sizes. You have chicken, red meat, turkey, yogurt, eggs, protein powder, things like that. Those are all valuable options of protein. If we want to be super scientific, the best way to have protein is 30 grams in 4 to 5 meals per day. But if we're being real, it's kind of hard to do that if you have work or school or things like that. So I just try to space out my protein as best as I can, just very focused on the end goal more than anything, which I recommend as well. So this covers the basics of nutrition. I hope that you gained a lot from this video and you can implement all of this stuff to get as much muscle as possible on your body. There's certainly a lot more to talk about nutrition, which I'll get into in more later videos, but this is for sure a great introduction, and you can definitely take everything I said here into your own accord. But if you think I'm cool and want to see more and learn more about lifting, then click that like and subscribe button. Thanks.